Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about hardline sketches. Hardline sketches are a little bit different than regular freehand sketches because they incorporate both scale and proportion, and they just give you a better general sense. They're a little bit more accurate, if you will. We use them when we're meeting with clients because it's nice to convey actual size and dimensions, but also using, the speed of a sketch. So it's easy to convey ideas kind of rapidly through a sketch. That's the idea. But a hardline sketch gives you kind of the best of both worlds. It gives you an understanding of both scale proportion, but also allows you to get ideas out quickly. So today, what I'm working on is the front facade for a building that we're working on. It's a commercial building, and it's really just a simple building, but like everything that we do, we try to incorporate small little details. We try to think through small little moments, such as proportions or relationships of things, that just take that simple building and make it just that much better. So when we look at this drawing right here, I had spent some time hardlining it, using my scale to actually produce this baseline drawing. And you'll notice a few key things when we're working on this. We have the actual angle of the roof pitch drawn in. We have the actual dimension or height of the sidewalls drawn in, the actual width of the building in there. And then we're thinking of a moment in the front facade of this building that sort of brings people into the space. You can kind of see we have this little canopy structure that's drawn off to the left-hand side, and actually the driveway exists over here. So even though it's a simple building, we're thinking through a lot of stuff in this one simple sketch. One of the first things that I really enjoy about a simple gable building is this moment right here, this line that sort of connects the upper portion or the gable part of the building to the lower portion or the sidewall height portion of the drawing. And you can see I've kind of planned that to strategically land right at the midpoint of this upper set of clear story windows. And then, so that gives us a half dimension before the overhanging structure that's going to provide protection overhead as they're entering into the building. And then we have the doorway itself, and you can see here this doorway is a little bit highlighted because the frame for the door will be slightly larger than the frame for the window, which in this case I think is an advantage. People will understand what's a door and what's a window. So even though it's just a simple building, there's a lot of thought that goes into it that takes it to that next level. And I'm going to spend some time today just kind of putting in some color and some expression into this to help people understand materiality a little bit better. I often like to add a little bit of freehand sketching to the hardline sketch anyway, just to sort of represent trees, landscaping, stuff like that, just to add a little bit of that free-handed nature to the sketch, which most people seem to really enjoy. What's nice about marker as a medium is it's kind of non-committal. You can lay it in there, and you want your whole drawing to be, for the most part, at least the main subject of the drawing, to be full color. No white page left on the object itself. Now you can play with white space, a little bit negative space on the periphery of the object, but for the most part, you want the object or the subject to be completely colored in. And what's nice about marker is you can kind of pull the image out the three-dimensional quality, especially in the shade and shadow out with the marker slowly over time. That's why I really like marker as a medium, because you can keep layering a single color and it slowly and progressively gets darker and darker. And you can kind of see that that's what we're doing in some of the corners of the building where you would have shade and shadow as like a major factor. So I've already done this once before, but I like to accentuate it even farther just by adding more and more shade and shadow to each part of the sketch. So you'll get those areas of darkness, like where different materials meet each other under the eaves and overhangs, and then any areas like that at the corners, inside corners, outside corners a little bit, where windows and doors meet, and then also like along this edge where we've got 2 layers of siding that stop and start. And again, going back to what I was saying in the beginning, is this is a strategic moment right here. This sort of line that comes across and hits these upper clear story windows right at the midpoint. If we overlap these other upper siding panels with the lower panels, it's going to further accentuate in a subtle way this line right here, which will probably become one of my favorite moments in the design. So in that process of layering in darkness and information and detail with the marker, so I'm kind of going through, and this vertical fenestration that we're thinking about for this building, I'm just beginning to like take the marker, the fine tipped edge of the marker, over some of those connection points to just sort of, we have the line work already, but the marker and the darkness sort of adds a little bit of sort of natural quality to, you know, the imperfection of that joinery. You know, it's probably going to be a natural wood or something like that, ideally. So just going through and adding that little bit of information with the marker, it only takes about a moment, just adds takes that drawing to the next level. So there you have it, a basic hardline sketch of an elevation for a project, and it took us maybe 10 or 15 minutes to complete this sketch, but at least it gives us an idea that we can convey to our potential client in terms of materiality, in terms of color, in terms of proportion and shape and size and all those things. You know, I think marker as a medium is a really good medium to be able to do that relatively quickly. It's expressive, and it does a nice job of, you know, conveying ideas to your potential clients. So the nice thing about this hardline sketch that we've just completed now is it gives us the ability to quickly convey, you know, size, shape, proportion of the building through the hardline nature of it, but also through the use of the marker, it's allowed us to sort of be able to take that conversation the next step further and talk about materiality and details about how we see things coming together on the building. What's glass? What is wood? What is steel? So it gives us the ability to sort of just take that sketch to the next level, gives us that much more meaning out of it, and it helps us to convey information very efficiently so that we can further the conversation with our client. So looking at this sketch, some of the colors that I've used, which is a very basic palette, I have blue to represent sky. I've been using brown, a shade of brown, and actually it's taken me a while to find this shade of brown, but I like this because it always looks good in marker form. But I like this for conveying wood. So it's just a general sort of neutral brown, and I like it because you can layer in darkness with it, and you can convey different types of wood with it depending on how many times you overlay it, or lighter wood if you only go over with one layer. I use the brown to represent what I'm thinking of as like a vertical wood siding, like a hemlock or something like that, which would give this building, even though it's very industrious looking, would give it just that next layer of softness. And then I'm using this charcoal color to represent steel trims around the top of the building, and for the overhang portion right here that would sort of take you to the front door. I like to use black to color my glazing, because in any sketch or any drawing you have to have a full range of values. I always say this, and you have to go from the darkest darks to the lightest lights. So I usually will use the windows and the fenestration as my darkest areas in the sketch, because that'll give me that baseline of the darkest area, and it sort of, this is a nice way to pull the eye in. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please follow for more videos like this, and I look forward to seeing you next time.